Can your koi filter really handle a pond full of monster koi? In this video, if you watch it to the end, you will learn 3 things. 1, how much filter media you need for the number of koi that you have in your pond currently. 2, how much you need to feed your koi for good growth. And 3, how much filter media you need in your pond to filter the amount of food that you are feeding to your koi. Just how many koi your filter can support is simply based on the amount of media in your filter. The less media, the less koi in size and number it can support. It's not the volume of the water in the koi pond that matters when filtering the pond water, but what really matters is how much food you are feeding to the koi in the pond. Just how many koi your filter can support is simply based on the amount of media in your filter. The less media, the less koi in number and size it can support. Basically, whatever you put in your pond, you need to take out of it. You have put the food in the pond, so you need to take out and remove food waste and byproducts from the food to keep the water pure and safe for the koi to swim in. If left unchecked, the food waste will become a breeding ground for bad bacteria, and serious health issues will appear in your koi sooner than you can think. Waste will be in the form of koi poo, and some will be undigested food, and some will be converted into ammonia and nitrite and nitrate. The koi produce ammonia and it is in the pond as soon as you put the koi in the pond, but the filter takes time to turn the ammonia into nitrite, and the nitrite is in turn into nitrate. But there's a delay in the last 2 processes at each stage as the biofilm is playing catch up. Please support me by subscribing to the channel, and it helps the ratings if you like the video and share or comment below. But how much food you are feeding to the koi in the pond, this is the overriding factor in designing a filter system to cope with the large amounts of waste, both mechanically and biologically. The amount you are feeding is governed by water temperature and how many koi and at what size. Using the guide to length to weight in the description or pinned comment, you can work out 3% of the koi's body weight and see how much food you should be feeding per koi. This is based on a temperature of 24°C. Even if you have a good filter system, it's worthwhile to check how many koi at what size to see if your existing filter will cope with the growth in 2025 season. You may need to increase the amount of media in the filter. Count the number of koi in the pond, measure the length, and use the guide to estimate the weight of the koi. I have a pond net where I painted 1 centimetre rings on the leading edge of the pond net, as it's a 600 wide net, but a quick photo of the koi in the net and you can count off the rings for the length of the koi. This is so much easier to net the koi for a few seconds and release the koi after a quick photo, so the koi never leaves the pond. There is no lifting or koi sock into a measuring bowl with sedate in it to calm the koi down to reduce the risk of the koi jumping. All the risk is reduced to a few seconds in a net. easy for the koi, and a heck of a lot less stressful for me. Once you're armed with the total weight of all the koi in the pond, times it by 3%. This will give you the total food you need to feed in a day for good growth. Please ask any question in the comments below. Now you know what you should be feeding per day, and for argument's sake it works out a total of 110 grams per food a day. Using Oase 13 media as a guide, 50 litres will process 340 grams of food a day. Therefore, 75 litres will process 510 grams a day. But I would add an extra 25 litres of media for a buffer, so 100 litres to be sure, which will process 680 grams of food a day. So you can work out how many litres of media you need to process the food you wish to feed. Please bear in mind koi grow. So if you work out you are feeding 1 kilo a day, 2 weeks later, to maintain that 3% body weight, you will have to increase the feeding to 1.2 kilos a day, and so on. So you need to allow for this to increase in feeding by increasing the amount of media in the filter. Please note that 340 grams per day is with the mature media at 24°C temperature. So a word of warning, do not expect 340 grams of food to be processed straight from the media, straight out of the bag. It's not gonna happen. If I was feeding a kilo of food a day, I would have 200 litres of media, which should deal with 1,360 grams of food a day once it's mature. It takes time for the media to mature, normally 6 to 8 weeks at 24°C, and a lot slower at lower temperatures. So add some filter gel or pond balls to kickstart the media. The other thing to bear in mind, please do not dump 1 kilo of food in the pond once a day, but buy an auto feeder. I use a Fishmate P7000 on a frequent feed setting. So good, I have 3 of them. Break down the feeding to 6 feeds and slowly increase it to 7 feeds, increasing the volume slowly so that your filter has time to adjust to the increase in feeding. Remember the delay in the filter. A little and often is the secret to feeding koi. They have no stomach, so it's an endless conveyor belt of food in one end and poo out the other. So you are helping them feed naturally. They're just like sheep. They're constantly grazing or snacking on food. By feeding small amounts, you are also helping the filter media by giving it lots of little snacks, rather than one huge feast, followed by a huge spike in ammonia. So check your filter has the correct amount of media in it for the coming season. Check how much filter media you need for the number of koi that you have in your pond currently. Check how much you need to feed your koi for good growth. And 3, check how much media you need in your pond to filter the amount of food you are feeding to your koi. Thank you.